Hello everyone and welcome back to the Bee Vlog. If you're new to this channel, my name is Bill. Today I'm going to be doing more viewer Q&A. Today's question is going to be about what's the best type of bee to buy. Since many of you are going to be buying bees for the first time this year, this question comes up a lot. But first I want to thank you all for the great questions and comments I got on my last Q&A video. I really appreciate the feedback. Not only does it give me a lot of good content ideas for videos that you actually want to see, but I like the back and forth dialogue. Now first I'll answer a couple of quick questions before I take on the big one. Dave Mosley asked, did you have to initially register with the state or notify them of bringing in packages from out of state? State registration is different in every state. Also, some cities or counties may also require registration. It's different everywhere, so check your local laws. In the US, it's not required to notify any authority about shipping packages. In fact, the United States Postal Service will actually ship the packages for you. But that can be different in other countries, so again, check the laws where you live. Dave also asked, do you leave your bottom board screen open for ventilation? Did you consider wrapping your hives to protect from wind? I leave my bottom boards open all winter. Wrapping hives is generally not advised in my area. It can prevent good ventilation. People in more northern climates where they get a lot of snow may wrap their hives, but here in Portland, where our winters are moderate but rainy, we don't. If you want to provide a good windbreak, then a fence or bales of hay stacked up around the hives would be a good option. I saw your video on insulating with the top Vivaldi board using wood chips. How is this working for you? For those that may not know the origin of this question, last fall I winterized my 10-frame hives with either quilt boxes or wood chips in the Vivaldi covers. I'll provide a link to that video in the show notes. The idea is that not only does it help insulate, but it also absorbs moisture. So far it seems to be working really well. 5 out of the 6 hives are surviving. The one hive that died didn't die due to moisture. I'll go into more detail about that in a few more weeks when I do an autopsy video on the deadouts. Now on to the big question. Bob Bruchsaler asked, and Dave also wanted to know, here is an idea. Talk about the different types of bees and the pros and cons of their respective genetics. I know as a soon-to-be new beekeeper, I find myself vacillating between Italians, Russians, VSH mated with others, and etc. This is a complex issue, I know, and I am told it really doesn't matter as the US bees are mutts anyways. Not sure what to make of that statement that I have heard a couple of times. Thanks for the question, Bob and Dave. This issue about the different types of bees can really be a stumbling block for a beginner beekeeper. To really answer the question though, we need to take a step back and look at the bigger picture of the origin and present state of bees in the United States. After you watch this video, I recommend you go check out a presentation that Deborah Delaney did on her research into honeybee genetic diversity. I'll provide a link to that video at the end and also in the notes below. It's a little over an hour long, but very much worth the time if this subject interests you. Here's a really quick summary of the history. The honeybee, Apis mellifera, that we have here in the US is not native to North America. It originated in Europe and was first brought over in the 1600s. Initially it was the German dark bee, Apis mellifera mellifera. Then between 1859 and 1922, 7 additional subspecies were brought in. This all stopped in 1922 when Congress passed a law called the Honeybee Act, which restricted importing living adult honeybees into the United States. Not all of these subspecies survived well, leaving us with the 2 main subspecies we see on the market today: the Italian honeybee, Apis mellifera ligustica, and the Carniolan honeybee, Apis mellifera carnica. With no new subspecies or even new queen mothers being imported, the genetics of the Italian and the Carniolan have been mixed and watered down. Combine that with a few genetic bottlenecks, and what we have left here are considered to be mutts. They no longer are the same as their progenitors from across the pond, the subspecies they originated from. Then in the early 1990s, the Russian honeybee, Apis mellifera caucasia, began to be cautiously imported and used in special breeding programs to try to raise a honeybee that is more resistant to varroa mites here in the United States. You may also hear about VSH, Varroa Sensitive Hygiene, or hygienic bees. There's also Starline and Midnight and Buckfast bees and several others. These are not subspecies, but are hybrids, created through selective breeding of specialized stock. And then there's the infamous African honeybee, Apis mellifera scutellata. Occasionally, a story hits the news about someone or some animal being stung to death by bees. It's always just assumed to be a colony of Africanized honeybees, hence the nickname killer bees. It's always a very tragic event when something like this happens, but it's not a major threat. I dislike calling them killer bees. It's not accurate, and it causes unnecessary panic and fear. Africanized honeybee hives can't really survive in the northern climates of the US, so they're limited to just the southern regions. Beekeepers in those areas say that they are quite workable and resilient bees if you know how to work them carefully. You are more likely to be killed on the drive into work than to be stung to death by Africanized honeybees. The concern and media hype are blown way out of proportion. So it's time to buy some bees. What kind of bees should you get? The answer to this varies depending on what your goals are and where you live. Do you want to be a honey producer? If so, then maybe the Italian honeybee is best for you. They tend to bring in the most honey and can fill a hive very rapidly. But they also tend to eat the most honey during winter, so you have to make sure to leave them plenty or they might starve. On the other hand, Carniolans don't eat as much during winter, but they also don't produce as much as Italians. Many beekeepers in northern climates tend to favor Carniolans for their capabilities to overwinter, or if you can get some Russian bees, maybe they'd be better at dealing with varroa mites. However, none of this matters to a first-year beekeeper. In your first year, your main goal is to learn how to work with bees, and this can be done with any type of bee. Of course, it helps if they're gentle. It helps the learning be a little less painful. Many first-year beekeepers are thinking too far ahead about the next winter and trying to find bees that will survive. I understand that desire, but it's not that simple. Statistically speaking, and based on my experience and the experience of every other beekeeper I know, the chances of your bees surviving the first winter are not very good. I don't want to dampen your spirits, but I do want to prepare you for reality. It's going to take a few years to get used to working with the bees and understanding the timing of the seasons and the bees' cycle. The more hives you have, the faster this may go. My recommendation is to start with as many hives as you can. The race, breed, or subspecies doesn't matter. Just maximize the number of hives you can handle. Don't just start with one. Get at least 2 or even 4 if you can. If you have the option of getting a variety of bees, then do that. Also catch swarms. Set out swarm traps. Get on a swarm list or see if a beekeeper buddy can take you on a swarm chase. Before your bees arrive, spend a lot of time practicing lighting your smoker and keeping it lit. Learn to use a smoker. It's your friend. Once you have the bees, you'll want to make sure they're drawing good comb. Take a peek under the lid once a week. You don't have to take any frames out. Just look at the top bars and down into the combs and make sure they're drawing it out nicely. This is especially important if you don't use foundation like me, but it's even important if you do use foundation. Sometimes bees can mess things up even on foundation. At least once every 2 weeks, you want to pull out some frames and practice finding eggs, and identify the various stages of brood development. Look at how and where they store the bee bread in relation to the brood nest. What colors do you see? How much nectar are they storing up, and where do they put it? While you're in the hive, it's important to start developing all your senses. Don't just look, but listen, smell, and feel. Watch how the bees behave and move around. Put together a mental map or image of how they organize the hive. Listen to the sounds the bees make. Learn what a healthy hive smells like. Feel the heat on your hands that the brood nest gives off. Feel free to even gently touch the bees on the combs. This is why I don't use gloves. You lose one of your important senses when working with the bees when you use gloves. Spend several days each week observing from the outside. What kind of activities do you see at the entrance? Are they bringing in pollen? What does the activity look like in the morning, afternoon, and evening? This is how you develop your bee senses and learn from the bees. Having more than one hive helps you to spot differences. It gives you more exposure and learning opportunities, and when winter does come, it helps to improve the odds of having at least one survive. As you fine-tune your bee senses and learn more about the weather, seasons, and flowers, you'll get a better idea of what types of bees will do best in your area. Then you can start to get a little more particular about Italians versus Carniolans or VSH hybrids or whatever. I'll be doing more of these viewer Q&A videos throughout the year, So leave a comment below with any questions you might have. Once the weather gets better, I'll be back outside shooting videos with the bees. So click the subscribe button to get my videos in your subscription feed. Thanks for watching and stay shiny. Now, go watch that Deborah Delaney video.
And actually, the history in North America, a lot of people still don't realize that we actually brought honeybees over here. That honeybees aren't native to North America. Though there is some, people who like to debate that, because in the Miocene they found Apis nearctica, I believe it is, which was similar to a honeybee in Nevada. So there is some debate. But what we know of this type of honeybee that we have here today is not.